Welcome to the digital class, students. In class 10 social studies, as per class 10 social studies unit 17, today we will be learning about independent India from 1947 to 77, and for your convenience we have divided the lesson into 3 segments. Today we are going to learn about part 2. In part 2 you will be learning about how India was under the leadership of first Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and the second Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. Students, the first Prime Minister of India had a major task to bring in many changes. He was the first Prime Minister, maintained friendly relationship and introduced great foreign policy for India. Not only that, he has set up first planning commission and introduced 5-year plans. Not only that, he brought so many land reforms and he was so successful in maintaining the leadership within the party and in the Lok Sabha also. He was successful within the party and outside the party. After his demise, that is in the year 1964, there was a successful transition, that is the leadership was, our second Prime Minister was Lal Bahadur Shastri, and he was put to test on number of reasons, and today you will be learning about few important things that took place under the leadership of 2 Prime Ministers. In this part 2 section of unit 17, you will be learning about social economic reforms introduced in India soon after independence. Students, you also will come to know about planning commission and land reforms introduced in independent India. Students, you also learn about India's foreign policy and its relations with neighbours, and you also learn about the political changes that took place soon after 1967 general elections. Students, the Constitution of India has given importance to socio-political and economic justice. What is justice? Means what do you want? Actually, what was the need of the hour for the Indians? So, we needed to improve our social status, political status and economic status. So, giving importance to this, the planning commission was set up, and it was Nehru's idea who has given importance to socialistic ideas, and the following items were taken into consideration. In the social and economic change, the Constituent Assembly had called for social, economic and political justice and quality of status and opportunity. Social and economic change at the top of the agenda of modern India. In the same way, planning commission was set up. The first 5-year plan that was introduced in the year 1951 to 56 focused on agriculture and stressed on the need for increasing food production, development of transport and communications and the provision of social services. Students, when India became independent, there were numerous challenges in front of the leaders. India was facing unemployment problem, illiteracy problem, food shortage. In order to solve these tasks, the planning commission was set up with a high committee of leaders, and first 5-year plan was incorporated into our India with the help of socialistic ideas which we have taken from Russia. First 5-year plans were first introduced in USSR. 5-year plans were first introduced in USSR. So, Nehru, who was an admirer of socialistic ideas, implemented in India, and the first 5-year plan gave importance to agriculture. Nehru signing the first 5-year plan. For Nehru, agricultural transformation, change was not simply an economic issue, but a political, social and economic transformation of the rural sector. Students, agriculture means rural areas. If you want to develop rural areas, agriculture must be given importance. So, it was not only a political, economic, but also social transformation for Nehru. The first Prime Minister Nehru finally adopted three components: land reforms, agricultural cooperatives and local self-government. In order to develop the root level of our administration, that is the rural areas, villages, land reforms must be changed. What was existing before must have to be changed, that is zamindari system, raitwari system, malwari system must be contemplated, and the same time cooperatives must be established and land sealing act must be introduced. This was the criteria that we have to implement to develop the rural sector, and this was the criteria that our leaders wanted to introduce. The three types of land reforms were contemplated, means surveyed, examined, looked after, and they came to a conclusion that abolition of zamindari system, tenancy reform and land sealings. Students, zamindari system where zamindars were owners of the land was almost abolished and the land belonged to the tiller. Most of the land was in the hands of the landlords, they were of no use. So, they brought a land sealing act, and the act says that a owner must have only certain criteria of land, and next thing, the tiller, the landless labourers were given the land, and this shows that land belongs to the tiller. Such land reform were introduced by the Prime Minister of India. This was to ensure that the land went to the hands of the actual tiller and incentive a progress to produce more. You can see landless labourers were given free land, or the people were given land to produce more food, or agricultural production was given more importance in the first 5-year plan. Cooperatives provide valuable inputs like seeds, manure and fertilizers. This was in the local self-government giving importance. Local self-government would ensure that the land reforms and cooperatives run according to the collective interests of the village. Students, it was Gandhi's view that village administration must be given importance to develop India. So, keeping that in mind, local self-governments were given importance in the administration. The first 5-year plan focused on improving agriculture by building large dams to irrigate and produce electricity. India was having lot of uncertainty of rainfall. For that, we need water resources for irrigation, not only for irrigation, to produce and generate electricity, and for domestic purpose also water was in need. So, large dams were constructed during the first 5-year plan. Let us see some of the images. Jawaharlal Nehru at the site of Tilia Dam, Damodar Valley, which is built on Mahanadi. Nagarjuna Sagar Dam in Nalgonda district, Bakranangal Dam, these all dams were started in the first 5-year plan, giving importance to agricultural irrigation, generating electricity at the same purpose. These are known as multi-purpose projects. Though there was increase in agricultural production, it could not meet the needs of the population. Students, India was having a large population from the time of British rule. The population was increasing at an alarming rate. Though the 5-year plan focused on agriculture, it could not meet the needs of the people, and agricultural produce was not up to the expectation. So, the planners have given importance to industries in the second 5-year plan, that is from 1956 to 1961. Large scale limited companies were set up during the second 5-year plan. So, in order to improve our production in goods and other things, large number of industries were set up. Some of them are Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, ECIL, BHEL, etc. Many large companies were set up, limited companies were set up in order to produce our own goods, to have self-sufficiency and to increase the employment structure. Such things were taken into consideration during the second 5-year plan. Students, no country lives in isolation. Hence, we need friendship with the neighboring countries as well as the other countries for exchange of goods and services also. In order to settle our disputes bilaterally, we need to maintain friendly relationship with almost all the international countries in the world. Hence, a foreign policy was set up by the Prime Minister of India, and these are the things that we have followed during setting up of a foreign policy. It was first Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, framed and designed India's foreign policy, which we follow even till today. Nehru believed in socialistic policies. Nehru adopted a realistic foreign policy, keeping in view the prevailing conditions such as the Cold War between superpowers, bipolarization, military alliances, arms race, imperialism, colonization and racialism. Students, when India became independent, soon after the world was facing Cold War. Cold War means countries almost in the brink of a war and having unfriendly relations. It was after the Second World War, USA and USSR were the victorious countries and they wanted to implement their democratic and socialistic ideologies on other parts of the world. In this way, the country was divided into two. One was democratic countries of the world and the other was communist countries of the world. USA wanted to spread democracy and capitalism, and USSR wanted to spread communism and socialistic ideas. In this way, there was almost ideological differences, and this made the world to divide into two and almost in a brink of a war. At this juncture, India did not take either of the decisions and maintained neutralistic policy, that is, it wanted to be neutral. This is the world map showing blue having democratic countries in the world and red communist countries in the world. India did not join either of the power blocks, instead started non-aligned movement with the help of Egypt, Indonesia and Yugoslavia. Students, with the help of the leaders of Indonesia, Egypt and Yugoslavia, Nehru came together with many number of countries and formed a group. This is known as non-aligned movement. This is the meeting of non-aligned movement. The third countries of the world came together and formed a non-aligned movement. This is the image of leaders of Yugoslavia, Egypt and Indonesia. Students, India shares its frontier with Pakistan and China. Though maintaining bilateral mutual relations, India had to face number of problems with the neighboring countries. One of that is with China. Panchsheel, 5 principles of agreement, was signed by China and India. India faced wars with Pakistan in the year 1948, soon after the separation, 1965, 1971 and with China in 1962. Panchsheel means 5 principles of conduct signed between China and India in the year 1954. Main principle of Panchsheel is non-interference in each other's internal affairs. However, India had to face 2 wars during this period, first with Pakistan in 1948 and with China in 1962. Students, it was in the year 1964 Jawaharlal Nehru had died. So, the Congress party was almost in a dilemma who will be the next successful Prime Minister to lead India. So, the transition was very successful in choosing choosing Lal Bahadur Shastri as the second Prime Minister of India. Soon after Nehru's death or demise, the Congress party managed a successful transition with choosing of Lal Bahadur Shastri as its leader in government. Lal Bahadur Shastri served India as Prime Minister for a very short period, that is from 1964 to 1966. Lal Bahadur Shastri being sworn in as Prime Minister of India. His famous slogan is Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan. During his regime, that is during his short period of term, he was put to test with a series of issues which challenged the fundamental values and goals of Indian nation. When Shastri was Prime Minister of India, it was during his regime 3-language formula bill was passed. Lal Bahadur Shastri, the second Prime Minister of India. Students, during his term, anti-Hindi agitation led by D.M.K in the south, and during his term, India faced shortage of food due to war. Shastri was in Tashkent to sign a friendship treaty between India and Russia, and when he was in Tashkent, in his sleep he passed away. That means he died when he was in Tashkent. These are some of the news that India's Prime Minister's demise was reported in the newspapers. Students, when Shastri was the Prime Minister, 3-language formula was introduced, giving importance to Hindi as the main language for communication. This was not liked by most of the South Indian states. When the Official Languages Act was passed in 1963, the D.M.K party of Tamil Nadu believed it was an attempt to foist Hindi on the rest of the country, and they began a statewide campaign protesting the imposition of Hindi. Protests from D.M.K included strikes, dharnas and hartals, burning of effigies, Hindi books as well as the pages of the Constitution. Central government had to soon take a note of these protests. The images show D.M.K protesting for not liking to be Hindi as the main language. The Congress party itself was divided into pro-Hindi and anti-Hindi camps. Shastri granted right of each state to have its own language, and English would continue to be the communicative language between the center and the state. Students, when they happened to come to know there were large protests going on all over the South India, then Shastri came out of his way, keeping the other sectors not into consideration. Shastri decided that English would be the communicative language between the states and the center, and every state has the liberty to choose their state language as the first language of the state. Both the Prime Ministers, that is Nehru and Shastri, went out of their way for the unity of the nation. That means, students, when there were protests in South India and when the Congress party was divided into pro and anti-Hindi, then the Prime Ministers were having a challenge. They were put to an acid test. So, they took this as a challenge and they want to give this as more importance, though there were many issues to be solved. But since this was the issue which was a burning issue, this was taken into consideration and it was put to an end by both the Prime Ministers. Students, population was the main problem for India. Population was increasing at an alarming rate. So, to meet the food shortage, something had to be done. So, the leadership was considering many issues to solve the food shortage. So, that was the time Green Revolution was given importance. It was M.S. Swaminathan, the father of Green Revolution in India, was taken into consideration and Green Revolution was given importance. During the Green Revolution, high yielding variety of seeds, water was given important, water for irrigation was given importance, and land was taken, even the barren lands were converted into cultivation. So, Green Revolution was given importance from the year 1967 onwards. Nehru and the left of centre group within the Congress favoured the state controlled and institutional strategy in agriculture. Green Revolution refers to a large increase in crop production by using modern agricultural techniques. This is how the production was increased during the Green Revolution. Green Revolution in India refers to a period in India when agriculture was converted into an industrial system due to the adoption of modern methods of technology, such as the use of high yielding variety seeds, tractors, irrigation facilities, pesticides and fertilizers. Students, after Green Revolution, in the lesson you will be coming across the elections that took place in the year 1967. This was the landmark elections in Indian history, because for the first time Congress party started to lose its ground in the states as well as at the center. It could not make a remarkable progress as what it had made in the previous elections. Most of the states have lost Congress party, and even the Congress party could not win a remarkable seats in Lok Sabha. The general elections held in the year 1967 was a landmark in the history of India. Congress was defeated in assemblies in many states. Many intermediate castes formed governments in many states like the Jats, Kurmis, Koyars, Lods, Yadavs, Reddys and Kammas. These are the castes which have been benefited from the land reforms, and they became rich and they could voice out their opinion and formed many of the governments in different states of India. Regional sentiment began in many places of the country. Regional parties started to rise. In order to challenge leadership, Indira Gandhi took up the challenge both from within and outside the country. Students, when central government did not give importance to the state governments or the local self governments, so there was a rise in the regional parties, stating up that regional parties came up to voice out their opinion to solve the regional problems. At the same time, when Shastri died, there was a confusion and there was a segment where they were fighting for the leadership, and this was the time Indira Gandhi came to challenge the leadership within the party and outside the country. That was the time when Shastri died. Indira Gandhi came up with a challenge to solve the problems within the country and outside the country. This is the number of seats that Congress has won during the 1967 elections, and other parties which could secure a remarkable progress challenging the main party. Students, for your better understanding, try to read the lesson twice and try to solve the questions that come on the screen. What is the importance of non-aligned movement? At least 4 to 5 sentences must be written on your own. Write few slogans about Green Revolution. Write few sentences on Niti Aayog. How illiteracy affects the election, especially when it comes to exercising the choice of voting. Students, the present government came to power. It realized the lapses that are existing in the 5-year plans, and they have abolished the 5-year plans and introduced Niti Aayog. So, refer the books and write few sentences Niti Aayog. For better understanding of the concept, solve the worksheet. Please visit the official site of SCRT for worksheet. Students, let us meet in next session. Until then, take care.